Hello, she's in the wings and looking magnificent. Hey, Jess, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Where are we? Okay, hi.
Well, this is us. This is the world out there through that little camera. So all we have to do is talk into our microphones.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And now, for those of you who are watching live, what you don't see is that we're in front of the sidewalk and everyone on the sidewalk can hear us as well. So if anyone decides to give you a shout out, we're A-okay to converse with them. They can hear us, we can't hear them.
Okay.
That said, I'm so thrilled that you are here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So for all of you out there, Jessica Banks is a roboticist, engineer, and experiential designer who creates kinetic furniture, lighting, and interactive installations. She holds an engineer's degree with an MS in robotics from MIT's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, as well as a BS in general physics from the University of Michigan. She has no adenoids, which only means she still doesn't know where they are. And I'll admit, I Googled adenoids prior to this.
You know where they are now?
Now I know where they are.
Okay, good.
They're like the little part that's up in the...
They're kind of in, yeah.
In the
or
back?
They're like in this vicinity.
Yeah, there's like above your tonsils.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that
I
means...
mean, I was born with them. They were just removed.
Oh.
So I'm not like some strange mutant. No, that would be amazing.
That would
I don't
be
know how much
amazing.
power it
If
would give
only
me, but
we don't know the secret hidden power of adenoids.
Exactly.
So just this whole show for these 8 weeks is called WRAP. It's Women, Recipes, Art, and Process. And I think you
Just
have...
sit a little bit more. Okay.
Yeah, we can talk to each other.
Okay.
Your practice, I think, out of what I have seen and known of you, is one of the most interesting. I mean, you're combining all sorts of different forms from roboticism, engineering, art, kinetic furniture. What drives your passion? What do you think is the underlying thread?
Neuroses, maybe a little bit. I generally just feel this natural compulsion to create things. And I don't really know where that comes from. I don't want to be grandiose about it or anything. So I think it's just, I have this strange desire to make things. And when I look around the world often, I see, I like to combine ideas. So I'm not good at compartmentalizing. So emotions or relationships or objects even. And so I think that all these things kind of merge together. And the result is that I start to think in these kind of very dynamic and merged thoughts. And happens to come out in the objects I create.
Yeah, and I think, I look at your work, you're super well known for your company, Rock Paper Robot, which is one of my dear favorite names for a company.
Thank you.
And you have this piece that's a floating table.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who haven't seen it, can you describe what it is and how it works?
So we have this table called Float, and we call it a levitating table. And it is basically these magnetized wooden cubes that levitate with respect to one another. So each cube, you can't magnetize wood. I'm so distracted. Hi, look at the cute dog.
I know.
So basically each of these hollow cubes has a magnet in it, and then all the adjacent cubes next to it have a magnet that is repelling the magnet in the adjacent face. So you end up with this matrix of wooden cubes that are all kind of repelling each other, and they're held together by tiny little stainless steel cables. So it's kind of all held in tension, but then you can smush it down and it wiggles and snaps back.
Where did this idea come from?
I think these are like, my ideas are evolutions of different experiences, and I think, part of it was like, I really love magic, and so someone showed me a magic trick with magnets, and I'm like, that's great. How can I bring that feeling of wonder and awe and that questioning of what's happening into something that is, not just an instant experience, but a prolonged object. And there's other parts, like I have a strange thing with my eyes where I was blind when I was younger for a little while, and so I see things a little bit differently, and my eyes cured better than, or differently than normal people see. So sometimes I actually see the world in an overlapping way, or something missing, and that can create notions and ideas of objects that could exist but that don't.
Yeah. And something that I see, I mean, you're working in technology, but not working in a screen button pushing kind of way, right?
Yeah.
How do you approach this idea of technology? We're in the digital age now, but you're working in contrast to it in a lot of sense.
I think technology to me is a tool. And so, and it, just like a hammer, it can help you, break things, or it can help you build things, and it relies on knowledge and an understanding of all the different ways to use this one tool, right? So to me, the technology is not just about digital, it's understanding all forms of information, right, that come in. So, and a lot of it now, of course, data and the way that we interact with information, a lot of it is on screen, and we can have these amazing sets of data that we can now, get more and more activity from. But I think my relationship with technology is one that I also wanted to use that to imbue the objects that we feel warm about, and that the possessions that we love, and have them have new tools and new capacities. So I think it's interesting. I'm not sure that I don't like to think in digital versus analog necessarily. It's kind of a merge.
Yeah. Just before you, Liz was talking about her work, which incorporates a lot of slime.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's something also about the sense of touch that I think about when I look at your work.
Yeah.
Like is that a thought when you're going forward to make something?
Yes, because I like to incorporate all the senses. I think in order to be more indelible in people's minds, you have to, bring in more of the senses, as you definitely know. And so if I can, include not just the visuals of something, but the way it sounds, the way it feels and moves, then I, make a bigger impact on a person's brain. And that is great marketing, because then they don't forget our stuff, and they don't forget me. But it's also great for, I think, inspiring, new neural connections and new ways of thinking, new perspectives in the other people.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
It just made me think that your objects are like props for creativity in everyday life.
That's what I like to think of them more as, or less as objects, and more of the experience of wonder. Right, and that is really priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you were a child, was this career at all a path for you? Like, how did you? You are an inventor, I think, and you seem to have invented your own way very easily. But what did you think about when you were small?
I wanted to be an astronaut when I was very young, and actually up until I thought I was going to be one until I graduated from college. And I'm still not sure I'm not going to be.
The definition of astronaut might change very rapidly in the next 15 years.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be an astronaut, but I liked to play with stuff. But at the same time, I never used, I wasn't allowed into the side of the basement where my dad's sharp tools were. Like, my sister and I were supposed to keep out of there. And so I didn't build things like that when I was little. We had Legos and stuff, but and erector sets. But it's not that if you had looked at my childhood, I don't think you would have said this girl is going to grow up to make things in the world. I don't think it would have been completely obvious. But, I did, I was constantly trying to feather my Barbie's hair and stuff like that. And this is an interesting point, which was when I got to MIT for grad school, a lot of my colleagues were male. And they had been, building skateboard ramps and breaking bones and everything since they were super young. And so I felt there was a very tangible, very palpable learning curve, and very steep, just to get comfortable with the capacity of my own body. Like, what can I create? Because the idea of creation was new to me. It's like, what can I build? And so when I was at MIT, I really got into the machining aspect, and I was in the machine shop always. I really learned how to machine, and I felt this rebirth of wonder about how to use my hands. It was like I just learned what they were capable of, and like they'd been there the whole time, and I somehow didn't understand.
You went to circuit training or gym class for your creativity in a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
by working it out. That's fascinating to me, and I'm interested, is there anything that you do in your daily life or practice that helps maintain that? Because you also now have developed a superpower in this place. So it's like when you get there, how do you keep going to the next level?
I think if I were to think about that part, I would freak out more because, there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
Like, you can't guarantee novelty and invention and inspiration necessarily. There's no guarantee for your eurekas. But the I thing helps me because I make visual mistakes. So there's that just some, like, platform-dependent function happening. And then I think it's maybe just a level of openness and not worrying that I'm gonna not be able to perform the next day, and not being also possessive about the ideas that I have today, because I think those things can be really detrimental to the creative process.
Yeah, that kind of self-awareness, like letting go of it, seems to be the way forward in a lot of sense.
I think so.
Now, this is a question I know that I think about and fight in my own self, and that is, what is our quest, love or money? Or emotion and money? And is that in you? What do you fight for every day?
Freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah. And it's funny because, if you think about what does emotional freedom mean, right? Does that mean that you don't love people or that you do, right? And maybe that's the conflict. Some days I'm oppressed by how much I love people, like I'm worried too much. But at the same time, what an amazing thing to be like so consumed with love of others, right? So that, and then the money part, I want to make money because I want freedom to be able to create anything I want. And I also want the people I love, especially my family, to feel like I'm safe, that I have a future and that I'm going to be, provided for. So I'm not sure if like the love versus money thing is the question for me, but they're intertwined in a way that makes for an interesting, question, I guess. I don't really know how to answer it.
Yeah, but a whole pursuit, it sounds like, too.
Yeah.
They're in service of something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you look at the landscape that's in front of you, I think you are, as I said before, in the business of invention more than anything else. Life, new definitions of how we use objects. What do you think the world needs right now?
I'm going to say something that's going to totally belie my business model, probably my personality. We need to rein it in a little. I think the world needs to look at people more, right? And so, like, we are in an amazing country, an amazing city of abundance, and but I don't think that all of the things that we create in the world are necessary for pushing us ahead as a species or as a civilization. And I think it would behoove us to pay more attention to humanity as in general, so that we can help bring people who are suffering, and then also who are violent because they are suffering, to rein that in. So I think the world needs to have more compassion.
Yeah. I'm curious, can objects do this? Can a built environment do that?
I do think so. I think that there are ways, there are definitely ways that just through our empirical senses that we can, have different impacts on our brain to create, through color or shapes, we have affinities for things. But I do think there's a way that you can create objects that connect people, right? So you could, even, that you can, maybe you feel somebody's heartbeat, or maybe you have some look into the tiny nuances of a person's life. Where did they walk exactly, Why did they do this weird circle? Were they nervous? Things like this. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm not sure the best way to do it for the most people.
Yeah, it makes me think of it going to a materialist future. Yeah, of
Yeah.
designing systems and services
Yeah,
that
I
connect.
think a lot of that is true. But then we have to have, there has to be that user interface, right? So how do we interact with the system? How do we acquire the service, and how are we compelled to continue to use it and also add to it?
Yeah, it's such a human focus. And I think that as I think through even that landscape too, and that we also, when we're making work, we're looking for a specific audience, we're designing for people, creating for people. And these definitions now seem to blur so much, and especially as this platform is focused on female stories, on women. But do you think, does that definition change as our genders start to change, as we become more fluid in our interpretation? What does it mean for you to be a female?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know any alternative, so it's I can't. I feel I'm comfortable as in my skin in many ways, as in my gender. Am I comfortable in my personality? That's another question. And I'm sure that some of the discomfort I might feel sometimes with my personality is also socialized, and because I'm female, right? So there are other things though that I love about being a woman, which is and it might be that we're on this strange step function of a time for women, right? Where we can suddenly do so many more things. At least here, we can have a totally different idea about having a career or life, and when do children or marriage come in, or if they ever come into the picture. These things are all changing. So, this is I like being on the cusp of that, right? Because it enables me to be able to show options to younger women.
Yeah. And in that lens, what can younger people do to start advancing their creative careers, to become inventors perhaps too?
I think, just try things, right? And it's, break things and use as many senses and experience as you can. I really think that it's it can start often, it's really the onus of the parent. And I was lucky because my parents let me, even though I couldn't go into the sharp side of the basement, right?
That's going to become the thing, the sharp side of the basement.
Exactly. My parents made me feel like I could do or be anything, and they let me then, I got to be able to try stuff. They showed things to me, and they made sure that I was exposed to different things.
Yeah.
And I think that is important, to give those opportunities to children.
Do they still play a role in your life today?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Utter support, and the support isn't always that they give me, they're like, yes, you're doing great, everything's great. It's support in a way that is very helpful, right? Very sometimes critical, and but also loving. And we have such a close relationship that I always know that any of that is, to my benefit.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm curious, from that foundation, where do you see yourself going next? Is it continuing on in objects? You also talked about some form of social impact too.
I guess, I use the object creation, or this thing that I can't help to do, and I want to create, invent tons of stuff, but to be able to bring me the revenue that then lets me be able to do more socially motivated pursuits.
Yeah.
And then also, maybe that, to what you were saying, will help me understand better objects to create, to perform in that venue.
The web that we weave.
Exactly.
Do you have any, I hate the word heroes, but I'm going to use it. Who are the people who inspire you on a daily basis? I have such a bad memory. People can really come on. It's not that I'm having an Aleppo moment, but I have people that I really love their work, and they've inspired me, right?
nowadays I really feel appreciative of some of some of the people that I've met who are refugees, and that kind of bravery and like the resilience is totally inspiring, and it helps me when I'm down about work or the company or nervous about something and thinking like, you know, that's like I'm having a very first world problem, and that true bravery and caring and is really that's inspiring.
Yeah, it's like you talked earlier about the pursuit of magic.
Mm.
And what I'm curious about is what's that feeling in you? Because I wonder if it's maybe a similar feeling that connects that kind of inspiration to also like being able to make a table levitate or...
I think it's a combination of the ability to change something and not knowing what the solution is to do that yet, right? And to me, like that moment where you're like, I know I can fix this or change this or do something to this, but I'm not sure how. There's an element to me of magic in that moment, right? And then, you know, that finding out that, and then sometimes the magic goes away, right? When you solve a problem, sometimes for me, the magic of that moment will go away, but then it's a constant approach to the world. What's the new magic like, right? What's the next opportunity to create this like conflict?
Yeah, the
So-
transformation.
Yeah.
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 What was your first project that led you to this? I think we met originally and you were making a robotic arm that drew on
Oh,
lattes.
Yeah, that was, we did that with some friends too. Yeah, that was, I think, that was that was something we did for GE. But I think the first thing, you know, I don't even know. Back in at MIT, I did a project with some friends, and we made a robot that could also draw. But it would you'd go into a photo booth and get your picture taken, and then a robot that was in the back of the photo booth would draw your face or whatever you took a picture of with light. So we had a Polaroid camera, the shutter would open, and this robot with little LEDs on its end effector would move around and trace out, turning off and on the LEDs, so you got a long exposure, and then the Polaroid would spit out the picture. That was the first time that I really think I felt like, wow, this is like so weird, this thing that I've never seen before. Right?
Yeah, magic has
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that there is a difference between entrepreneurship and being an artist? Because when I hear you talk about something like that, it's very clearly a personal expression, it's an invention, it's kind of making the invisible visible. At the same time, you embrace entrepreneurship so well.
I'm not sure I do. Like I often see, and I actually think that there are the two sides of my personality, the engineering side and the artist side, are not catered to be a good entrepreneur, actually. So the artist in me is like, oh, shiny, you know, like, and like super big picture, and like really like I gotta look at everything. And the engineer part of me is extremely meticulous, right? If I use a number, I have to understand exactly what it means. Neither of those things are ways to run a business, right? You can't be super distracted and you know, go to different look at, hi everyone, and you can't really you know, have that kind of distraction, but you also can't be too meticulous. You can't get caught up on, you know, single sense and projections. This is a lot of guesswork. So I think those sides of me are not totally catered, and I have a hard time being in the middle. Like I'm more of an extremist, and I bounce back and forth. So you know, there's ways you can say that being an artist is sort of like being an entrepreneur. We can always morph any idea into another, find similarities. But for me, the art part is actually not the entrepreneur side. Just like an engineer, like I love solving problems, and there are all ton of problems in entrepreneurship. So you could say, well, it's sort of like engineering too.
Yeah.
But I think there's different sentiment, and that changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thus the feeling defines what we define.
Yes. Yeah.
So Jess, this has been so amazing.
Thank you.
To be able to chat
It was
together
cool.
on this topic, though, as you know, I'm making a wrap for everyone.
Yeah.
And this could be no normal wrap. So I know of your deep love of smoothies.
Uh-huh.
So this is, I think, the one and the only wrap that will totally depart from wrap form. This is made in collaboration with my friend Alicia Walters, who's the chef down at Once Upon a Tart. And as we were thinking about it, I was like, Alicia, we have to invent a new wrap. So this is a wrap. I'm
my
going to lean
gosh.
over and get it. Yeah. This is the first ever wrap in smoothie form.
That's hilarious. I love it.
So this wrap has
It's beautiful.
charred banana, blueberry, cayenne, and cinnamon. I think those are all
Yeah,
some favorite ingredients.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I love
and
it.
it's wrapped as well, as
It
you can see
totally
in
is
some
wrapped.
like metaphor of wrapping.
That's so perfect.
I hope
I
it.
love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
can it stimulate some form of new creativity or curiosity
Something
today?
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
this is already an element of that.
Yeah, I think so.
And everyone else will be like, what the F is that?
Yeah. We don't quite know, but it looks delicious, and maybe it's going to start a new trend of cabbage wrapped smoothies.
Totally.
Totally
I love it.
aesthetically pleasing.
Thank you. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.